Good morning and good evening, those who are connected the other side of the world. This is, I'm Isaku Endo, and I'm Senior Financial Sector Specialist. Today I'm going to host this event. Thank you very much to all of you connecting day 3 of Sustainable and Innovative Finance Forum. This session, the topic is transformation of Malaysia's money services business industry. And we are very excited that so many of you registered. We have about, as of yesterday, 405 registrations. And this session is streamed through WebEx and YouTube. Now, just before starting, just for a few housekeeping notes that all attendees will be muted throughout the session. To ask a question to the panelist, please send it through the question and answers box to the host and the panelist. We will monitor those Q&A questions. For general communications, please post them to the chat function, not Q&A, just general communications. During the Q&A session, we will also be doing a quick poll to receive or to get your feedback. And then these feedbacks are important for us to improve our program. Now we have very excited to have a distinguished panelist, which I will introduce them later, shortly. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Firas Rad, who is a country manager for World Bank Malaysia Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Finance Hub. Please join me welcoming Dr. Firas Rad for opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Isako, and good morning to you. I just want to make sure that you hear me clearly, Isako. Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, good morning from Kuala Lumpur, and good afternoon and good evening to those joining us from around the world. My name is Firas Rad, and as country manager for the World Bank Group Inclusive Growth and Sustainable Finance Hub in Malaysia, I'd like to welcome all of you today to our Sustainable and Inclusive Finance Forum and to this particular session focused on the transformation of Malaysia's money services business industry. At the outset, I'm proud to say that we are co-hosting this global forum with Bank Negara Malaysia, the Central Bank of Malaysia, and in close collaboration with other government institutions and development partners, including the Malaysian Ministry of Finance, the Securities Commission of Malaysia, Tsinghua University, and the Islamic Financial Services Board. I'd also like to extend a warm word of welcome to our panel of distinguished speakers who will be sharing their perspective on this important development topic. Sheikh Nick Muhammad bin Nick Musa, Director of the Money Services Business Regulation Department at Bank Negara Malaysia, Dato Sri Jaja Khan bin Kader Ghani, President of the Malaysia Association of Money Services Businesses, Mr. Ramasamy Viran, Founder and Managing Director of Merchant Trade. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, why are we focusing on the topic of Malaysia's money services business industry and its transformation in this forum? The answer is because it has been a great success story that has produced significant financial inclusion outcomes. The story began more than 4 years ago with the launch of a project under the name of Greenback 2.0, a collaborative initiative between Bank Negara Malaysia, the Malaysian Association of Money Services Businesses, the state governments of Johor Bahru and Sabah, the World Bank Group, and other development partners. The broad goals of the initiative were to decrease the costs and improve the efficiency of remitting funds by foreign workers from Malaysia to other countries. As mentioned by World Bank Vice President Victoria Kwakwa in her remarks on Tuesday in the opening session of this forum, remittances often play a transformative role in protecting the livelihoods of families and in reducing poverty levels across the world. For this reason, the United Nations SDGs recognize remittances as an effective tool to address global inequality and are pursuing the target of reducing the transaction cost of migrant remittances to less than 3% by 2030. In 2019, global remittance flows were estimated to reach $707 billion worldwide, of which remittance flows to low and middle income countries were projected to reach $551 billion. The top remittance receiving countries around the world are India, China, Mexico, and the Philippines. Remittances from Malaysia are also directed to these countries. It is worth remembering that in many countries, remittances are important contributions to international reserves and the overall balance of payments. At the household level, remittances are not only an important source of income for education, health, investment, and daily consumption, but have also provided unbanked individuals with greater access to financial services. Earlier this year in February, we came together to celebrate the outcomes of the Greenback 2.0 initiative. We observed over several years a significant increase in the volume of e-remittances, an increase of over 650%, and the lowering of the cost of sending remittances from 4.5% to 2.2%. Within this context, it is important to note that a 1% reduction in the cost of remitting funds translates into approximately 24 million Malaysian ringgits, or about $6 million of additional money flowing into the hands of migrant workers. This also means that over $30 million were saved with the implementation of this initiative, enabling Malaysia to become one of the first countries to achieve the 10th SDG, which aims to significantly reduce the transaction costs of migrant remittances by 2030. Since we gathered earlier this year, the world has been caught in the grips of the COVID-19 pandemic. This session covers the very important question of how the remittances industry has supported workers and their families in the shadow of this global health and economic crisis. In many ways, cost-effective, secure, and timely digital remittance services have become more important than ever in the age of COVID-19 for households and individuals around the world. In closing, I welcome again all participants who have connected online to our session today and look forward to the discussion on this transformative experience in Malaysia and what financial inclusion lessons it has for other countries across the globe. Thank you very much to all participants again, and Isako, I hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rad. Now we are moving to the panel session. We'd like to start by setting a scene first, because that some of you may not familiar with what money service business is itself. And also the World Bank is preparing this report documenting this transformation of Malaysia's money MSB industry, which will be published in a week or so. And so that in the next 10-15 minutes, I'd like to highlight some of the key snapshots of this report and then transformation as a background. And then we will show a little video and then move on to the panel discussions. Now, here I'd like to introduce you, the distinguished panelists we have today. As Dr. Rad introduced them briefly, we have Mr. Nick Mohammadin, who is the director of our MSB Regulation Department of Bank Negara Malaysia. He's responsible for regulation, supervision, and development of exchange currency, money remittances, and currency wholesale businesses in Malaysia. He has had various senior positions in the Bank Negara Malaysia, and he joined Bank Negara Malaysia 1991. We also have Dato Sri Jajakan bin Khaled Ghani, who is now president of Malaysia Association of Money Service Business. Dato is the chief executive officer of Jade Line Exchange, and was recently, in fact a few weeks ago, elected as president of the Malaysian Association of Money Service Businesses, so-called MAMS. And he has 17 years of experience in the financial services, and he was appointed as CEO and director of Jade Line Exchange in 2018. Last, but not least, Mr. Ramasamy Veran. He is a founder and a managing director of Merchant Trade Asia. He's a money service business operator in Malaysia and one of the leading companies in the country. He was also the first president of MAMS when it was established. Mr. Ramasamy is instrumental in bringing institutional shareholders into merchant trade, namely Sumitomo Corporation, Selcom Axiata, and merchant trade now has over 1,000 staff. And so thank you very much. Now, I'd like to move on to a presentation, just to give you a background. And then this report is prepared by the team, including my colleague, who is Miss Kim Chia, who was a former director at Bank Negara Malaysia, and also my colleague Dita Desumet, and also during this exercise that we receive a lot of inputs from members of MAMS and then other colleagues, so I appreciate that. Next, so what is money service business? Money service businesses we don't have a clear definition of this money service business, and we list a sample of countries which implement so-called MSB regulations. And this is typical. It's a regulatory category, typically covering non-bank financial institutions for exchange of money. And usually that we see that the remittances or money transfer businesses and then money exchange or bureau de change are recognized or designated as money service businesses. Malaysia is unique because the MSB includes wholesale currency, imports and exports of currency. But as you can see that other countries have many other categories that falls under MSB category. The approach is also different. That traditionally, this started with anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism. So for example, in the United States, the MSBs are regulated for registration at the federal level, but the prudential level that the state government also regulates them. Canada, also provincial government regulates them, and then at the federal level that they implement MSB regulation for anti-money laundering purposes. And then the countries have different approaches. Some countries take registration, that the MSB just register with the authorities to conduct business, or other countries require licensing to have more strong supervisory arrangements. But as Dr. Firas Rad mentioned in his opening remarks, the reason why we are covering this topic and have a strong interest is mostly because of remittance services offered by MSBs. As you know that remittance services can be the first financial services or formal or regulated financial services for migrant workers and their families. So the foreign workers, in the Malaysian term, or migrant workers, send remittances through formal channels or regulated channel. It's likely that their families also receive through regulated channels back home, and which could trigger the use of regulated channels and opening accounts and then contribute to the financial inclusion. So that's what's important. Next, looking at Malaysia, that in 2018, remittances from Malaysia reached US dollar 10.8 billion US dollars, and which made Malaysia the third largest remittance sending country in the region, Eastern Asia and Pacific region, following China and Korea. But under the COVID situation, the landscape of remittances has changed significantly. So this data may not mean much today. But again, it's important that Malaysia is one of the largest remittance sending country, which shows the size of the market over the years. And also, it's important that the number of foreign workers increased significantly in Malaysia. In 1997, it's approximately 1.2 million foreign workers are registered. And 2017, 1.8 million registered workers. But in last year, the World Bank conducted a study to estimate total number of foreign workers in Malaysia. The estimate was 2.96 million to 3.26 million, which also includes irregular foreign workers as well. And in this graph on the right shows that the Indonesia, the foreign workers is the largest portion of foreign workers. Next. So this slide is demonstrate a journey of the Malaysia's transformation of MSPs to date. And the policy, legal, regulatory reforms, and innovation in the market have been driving this transformation over the last 2 decades. But imagine that in 1998 or before around 2000, only banks were allowed remittance services, which means that the many foreign workers might have difficulty basically going to the bank branches. One, bank operating hours are not necessarily convenient for them. Weekends, they are closed. And also the culture of going the banks. Many foreign workers didn't feel comfortable going to banks. So that anecdote evidence shows that they changed clothes to make sure they feel they are appropriate for going to banks. And which is not really, those are the part of restrictions or obstacles. Now also there are many players in the market at the time. And now before the Bank Negara Malaysia undertook the reforms on the Money Service Business Act in 2011, there are many players that have a license with the money changers license conducting remittances beyond the scope of their licensing. So there are challenges. And then the Bank Negara took initiatives, for example, liberalizing the market. For example, they allow non-banks to provide remittance services, and then start changing. Yet there are difficulties. So in 2009, the Bank Negara Malaysia undertook a comprehensive review of legal and regulatory framework, which led to Money Service Business Act 2011. And then followed by other guidelines to shape the market or the industry, as you see today. But also we should recognize that there are lots of innovation in the regulations. For example, that principal agent arrangement to consolidate the market and clarify the reporting and also supervisory arrangement. Also eKYC using technology allow know your customers or consumer due diligence remotely. Also, organization of or establishment of the money service businesses as MAMS association is an important milestones. And lastly, that Dr. Rad also mentioned that the Greenback project, in the 4-year project in Johor Bahru first 2 years, and then Kota Kinabalu also as Sabah, which has a joint effort with the industry, embassies, plantation, and then other stakeholders in the market. So those contributed to transformation. The point is that it's not just one-time reform shaped the current landscape, but continuous efforts and reforms have led to transformation and then the industry that you see today. Next. So currently, the landscape of MSB industry is changing and rapidly. I'm talking about landscape before COVID situation, but I think it's important to discuss this, and this leads to our discussions on COVID impacts during the panel discussions. First, that the cash-based remittances is still dominant, as you can see on the right upper left chart, but also recognizing that the digital channels are increasing and still small, but they're increasing. And agent networks is still important role, and it's hundreds of agents exist, and Merchant Trade is the largest, the company which owns the agent network. But the agents provide access to remittance services or money changing businesses to the users across the country. But we also see that different players are coming in the market. For example, that the e-money license or approval is given to domestic payment service providers, but that some of them are obtaining MSB license and then coming to the market. The same goes to the MSB industry, that the MSBs also obtain e-money license or approval from Bank Negra to provide convenient services, to use electronic money, linking to remittance services, so that they are looking at the convenience for the customer, and also removing some operational the cost by providing digital services. And as I mentioned, that currently 28 MSBs have conduct digital called digital MSBs, and eight of them provide e-KYC services, which customers can conduct the KYC remotely. And then others, the customers come to the branch and to conduct KYC, and then next, from the second time, they have access to online or digital services through mobile app or online channel. Now, COVID situation changed drastically, and we posed the three sort of issues that drives next transformation. One is COVID-19. It's uncertain. It brings a lot of uncertainty. It brings behavioral changes of customers as well as to businesses. And then some of them are affected significantly. So we may see a consolidation of the markets. They're acquiring other players. So that could drive the next transformation. Next one is digital. As I mentioned, that the product innovation through digital means is important. Bank Negra Malaysia has a fintech sandbox, and then a few players graduated from the sandbox, as well as the traditional players, the global international players also adopt fintech solutions to provide convenient services and competitive services. So the digital transformation will drive another transformation in the market. Lastly, also regional integration. Malaysia is a member of ASEAN, and ASEAN's central banks agreed to sort of transporting the banking license, but it's a qualified ASEAN bank, and the banks can operate in other jurisdiction based on agreements. So they may play a role in remittance services as well. For example, that the Indonesian bank could play a role in the Malaysian market or other players. Another one is the payment system integration, that the ASEAN central banks have been working hard to integrate or promote regional integration, and especially retail payments. For example, using QR code is one example. And these could drive the transformation at the regional level. And those are infrastructures, institutions, services, and the products. So those are the opportunities. And also, it's a lot of questions around it. Now, as I mentioned, we'd like to play the video of Greenback, which shows some results that we thought that would be of interest to many participants, and then moving on to the panel discussions.
It's not on YouTube.
Yeah, delay. The live stream.
Nama saya Andi, saya berasal dari kota Malang, dari Jawa Timur. Saya bekerja di ladang di sini, dan kebetulan kalau di ladang kita susah untuk mengirim uang. Tapi sekarang saya lebih mudah mengirim uang dengan aplikasi di mobil saya, karena dengan mengirim uang pakai aplikasi ini, uang kiriman saya cepat sampai dan saya bisa melakukan di mana saja, di manapun juga.
Hi, I'm Grace from Philippines. I came here in Malaysia for working as a caregiver. My place in the remittance is very far, so I need to take 15 ringgit, grab car or taxi. So when I find out the mobile apps, my money I save a lot.
Nama saya Siti Juwita, berasal dari Medan, Indonesia. Alhamdulillah, saya dapat membantu keluarga saya di kampung. Satu saat anak saya sakit dan sangat-sangat memerlukan uang, saya tidak dapat kedai yang ada lesen. Pernah saya menghantar duit, tapi tidak sampai. Dan duit simpanan saya habis. Alhamdulillah, dengan menggunakan aplikasi ini, saya boleh menghantar duit bila-bila masa.
Terima kasih Greenback.
Thank you Greenback. Terima kasih Greenback.
Thank you. So now we move on to panel discussions. We have Chenik Muhammad Din Nick Musa and JJ, I call JJ as a friend, and also Mr. Rama, I call you Rama, during the panel. Now, we'd like to cover this interesting topics for many participants. And but I think it will be important to highlight, what drives these reforms from different perspectives as well. So we like to discuss Money Service Business Act itself, and also key milestones that from their perspectives on driving the transformation, also role of money service industry and COVID, and also innovations. Now, I'd like to start with the Chenik about the Money Service Business Act. And in your view, and I would like to ask all of you your perspectives on the Money Service Business Act, especially if you could share sort of a story from your end. But what did the act drastically change the money service business industry before and after the act, Chenik?
Thank you very much, Isaku, Dr. Firas, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I think first of all, let me just say thank you to World Bank for inviting me to speak on this panel. I think this is the first time that I'm speaking on a panel at the comfort of my own chair and also in the safety of my office, sipping my coffee from my favorite mug. So that's always the first time. Again, thank you to Isako for setting the scene of the Malaysian transformation MSB industry. As he mentioned, let me just summarize. Firstly, we need to understand why the new law was necessary. I think firstly, we have to know that the industry was very much fragmented and we had very small players in the market. We had over 1,000 players. This was prior to 2011, and hence the level of service was understandably low. So this was one of the main reason, the industry fragmentation. We also had lower levels of compliance and professionalism. I understand that time some of us were afraid to enter the outlets because they didn't look very modern, they weren't very professional, and the industry was also commonly associated with illicit activities. And the last major thing that we noticed was the limited supervisory and enforcement powers that the bank had, and also the penalty on any wrongdoing by the players were not punitive enough. Hence, we needed one omnibus act, one single law to govern the industry, to replace the 3 laws that were used at that time to govern the industry. And we undertook a relicensing of all 1,000 over players, and we only admitted only the viable ones. And by the end of 2011, as Saku pointed out, we had about 800 players. And in order to push this effort, the MSBR, the Money Services Business Regulation Department, was also established in the year 2012 to give it extra focus. As you all know, the transformation began in 2011, and noticeably the industry consolidated, and we became more professional, with higher compliance level, higher standards, and this was represented by 3 major changes in the industry. One is the landscape itself. We now only have 310 players, many of which are medium size and large size, and but we also do have some smaller ones which will cater to the niche areas in the market. The industry went consolidation process, and even up to today, the consolidation is taking place, and of course, following the pandemic outbreak. More players had multiple license. The law allowed the players to have multiple license, remittance license, money changing license, wholesale license, or a combination of any of the 3. And we had wider access point because the law allows agents to be appointed, as well as principals to govern them. And throughout Malaysia, we have about up to date more than 3,000 outlets of branches and agents. We have now higher level of competencies with people managing the outlets and the companies with better experience. We have heightened regulatory compliance, and all this came from better training that the association and the bank had put in place, as well as the accreditation process that have been put in place. Secondly, from the angle of economic growth, the business itself is now more notable due to greater awareness and the use of formal channels. Outward cross-border remittance have grew very considerably to the tune of 3 times what it was in 2011. Previously, it was about 9 billion outward remittance in ringgit. Now it has grown to more than 28 billion as at end of 2019. And as Yusaku pointed out, the remittance market in Malaysia is the largest in Southeast Asia and one of the largest in Asia. So this is the magnitude of the industry that has grown over a period of 8 years. And because of this, the level of product sophistication has also increased. We've seen many products which are more digitalized in nature. And last but not least, this is in terms of supervision and enforcement capability that the bank has. We now have greater ability to undertake all these activities, and this is to enhance the level of compliance in the industry. And this is particularly very, very crucial, because if you maintain a higher level of standard, if you maintain a higher level of compliance, the trust level will increase. I think that's the pillar of the industry, is the trust that people, the man on the street, the public will have on the industry. And it is very important that the bank, the players, and all stakeholders continually maintain the level of trust in the market. And suffice to say, the bank's now moving more towards smarter supervision and is supported by greater use of data analytics and artificial intelligence. I think from the regulatory perspective, that is how we saw the market have changed and continually change given the current COVID situation.
Thank you, Chenik. Very interesting points. And now, can I ask JJ, your views as a sort of money changer as a company, but also sort of collectively, how the industry sees this transformation through before and after MSB Act?
Dr. Firas, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panel, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. First of all, it's a great honor to join this session to share the industry view. I have to agree with Icheni. Prior to 2011, introduction of the MSB Act, the industry was a highly fragmented industry. Family-run business, mostly family-run business. 80% of the industry was in a small size, and we have to admit that the governance level to mitigate the risk of ML and TF and illicit activities is questionable at that point of time. Since I'm one of the oldest industry player, we have gone through a deep assessment by the central bank to understand the gaps. By 2009, the assessment has gone through, and the central bank has understand the gap, and the introduction of MSB Act had given a lot of room, particularly to strengthen the ML and TF, and also to provide greater protection to consumer in terms of building the trust of consumer towards this industry. We'd like to share some key transformation that took place in MSB industries after the introduction of MSB Act 2011. One of it, the approach by the central bank in terms of proportionate regulation, which the regulations also look into the nature, size, and complexity of the business itself, which give the licensee empowerment to develop the business according to the risk level. Secondly, we have seen a new regime that not familiar to us previously, the regime of ML and TF. Thirdly, this new act has given us an expanded scope of business activities in terms of we can able to do 3 segments of business under one roof, namely remittance, money exchange, and also wholesale banknotes. And another greater things that or greater ideas that was introduced is, of course, the principal and agent modules, which by then, when the assessment was done for the entire industry, more than 103, around 103 companies required, they couldn't longer continue with the operation. And there are around 67 companies opted to become agents. So this agent principal module has given a second life for those who doesn't have a competency at that point of time to continue the bread and butter to survive in this industry. Apart from that, the Act also strongly promotes strong compliance, definitely strengthen the industry arrangement through the formation of MAMSB. MAMSB was formed around 2014 officially. Around that, we also, we encouraging, I think this new act, of course, is encourage competition and raising consumer awareness. The customer has been the biggest beneficiary in this new act. 2 key points that I would like to share that make this act more viable to the industry player is the abolishment of currency holding of 250,000 previously under Money Changing 1998 Act, which has given us a lot of room and empowerment to increase our paid-up capital and to cater the business in a very bigger level. Of course, these are some of the points that I can highlight to you from my part, from the industry perspective. And definitely, I think this new act today has been, what we can see that has built the consumer trust towards the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. You touched interesting points on the first. Thanks for sharing the landscape, the fragmented and also family-owned, which we can imagine that how the industry was shaped at the time, and also thanks for the key points on the regarding NSB Act. Now, for Rama, I'd like to ask you, because since you've been in the market also before and also after the act, and also exploring different areas of businesses within MSBs as a merchant trade. So, can you share your perspective? And first, as a first, your experience also as a first president of MUMS, but also as an industry player on the MSB Act.
Thank you, Isago-san. Thank you, Dr. Firas, for having me today for this forum. It's a great honor to be here. Just to share the merchant trade perspective, as we are growing, we believe this MSB industry managed to change the company itself. When we started our business, we're just one single branch owners. But the MSB Act given us a lot of opportunity to think how reinvent the whole business. I'm going to share with you a few things that what merchant trade and of course the industry later. Number one is we invested heavily on the IT and system. That give us a bit of movement in the market to move faster, robust in terms of putting all the capture all the customer data, give a customer experience, able to move out very fast, roll out the principal agent model. So that is where we the MSB Act given us an opportunity. And of course, if you go back pre MSB, we don't have that opportunity. I mean, we are very small player at that time. So that's number one. Number two is this MSB also Act allow us to manage to bring a lot of talent into the industry. The Act, we managed to, when we invested a lot of money, we have managed to capture a lot of talent from the bankers, from other industry to come and help us. So that itself, when a company growing, we managed to get the talent pools, necessary talent pool. The third one, I think, is the governance structure. When we start building the business, then we're able to bring a lot of governance structure. We have 3 independent directors. We have investors, overseas investors, local domestic investors. So the governance structures with the remuneration committee, with the risk committee, all kind of set up, a structured setup is make the company more viable at this moment. Come back on the association. I was the first president. Yes, is help us to look at the industry as a overall. Of course, the association managed to give a very different perspective on for the initial stage. So I can share with you the association itself managed to drive the players like us to invest heavily on all these IT, talent, governance, and of course, we managed to grow our business with the dynamic competition.
Thank you for sharing. Now, I'd like to ask the next questions about also links to the MSB Act, but this is an agent and principal arrangement. The Bank Negara Malaysia issued a principal agent oversight framework guidelines earlier, I think around 2013, and it shaped the industry quite a bit. But also we hear a lot of agent banking, but I see sort of different characteristics and or typical agent banking. You know, for example, mobile money operators sign up small merchants, and then provide the sort of basic digital service payment services. But I think this is more so higher level. One is compliance, and also to organize the industry. So there was a clear intention by Bank Negara Malaysia, and then also we saw the results in terms the statistics shows that how the number shaped as I presented earlier. So to Chenik, that what was really the policy intention and of this principal agent arrangement? You touched upon a little bit on the supervision, but if you could elaborate a little bit more on this topic, please.
Sure, Isaku. The situation then was it was not easy for some of the players to meet, say, the capital fund requirement. For companies that are struggling or facing stiff competition, falling margins, and growing losses, they will eat up into their capital fund. So the challenge is to meet that requirement of the law. And I think the other part is the capability to safeguard the industry, the competency issues, the finding the right people to manage the AML CFT requirement was also quite prominent then. So we needed a way to for the players to still remain in business, but in a different form, in a different model, which is hence we introduced the principal agent model. This is mainly, as I mentioned, to address the capacity and competencies issues. When they become agents, so they will better manage themselves, because previously they cannot meet the minimum capital fund as well as the safeguarding the AML CFT requirement. Hence, now when they become agent, they can leverage on the resources of the principals. So we are very selective in choosing the principals. And currently we have about 13 principals that manages about, I think about 500 agents in the industry. The second rationale is we want to reach a wider audience. At that time, there were many underserved markets throughout Malaysia. Malaysia is a vast country, and there's some remote areas, especially in the deep remote areas of Sabah and Sarawak, where there were geographical challenges for some of the players to set up branches. So the agent model allow them to operate in this area. So the second point is the outreach, the reach, as well as it widened the accessibility for customers to get the MSB services. And thirdly, as I think Mr. Rama will be able to vouch, it lowers the cost of business expansion. For companies to expand via branches is quite costly in terms of overhead, in terms of utilities, salaries to be paid. So these allow the players to manage their cost more cost effectively. I think this area is where Mr. Rama can elaborate further. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Janik. Now, Mr. Rama, so merchant trade is a principal license holder. So so I'd like to ask you the sort of role of agents, and also I like to bring this digital transformation angle that the role of agents in your view, and also will it change over time if digital remittances increase? And also one of the participants asked that how the agent model works. So if you could elaborate a little bit how this agent model works, that would be helpful. So the role of agents, will it change over time with the digital transformation in the future? And how the agent model works. Rama, please.
All right. My take is due to geographical challenges. I strongly believe the agent network will remain relevant. It's most likely the agent to move. I think agent will move from over-the-counter transaction to digital transaction. They will work closely with the principal to onboard, they educate their customers. So I think the agent will be stay. The most important thing, the digital environment today, the agent getting worried. Are the over-the-counter business still be relevant or not? But we assure them again that these customers, because of again the geographical thing, the agent will still continue to do the business. Maybe the workers in the rural area, they're not that tech savvy, and definitely this agent will continue to have their services rural areas. So I believe these urban areas likely is a challenges for those who are having the digital transformation for the apps online platform, but rural areas still there's a requirement for agent network in the long run. To come back on the question just now, how the agent model works. So we appoint a two-type agent. Number one is those who already have money changing license who wanted to do a remittance. So we can appoint them. They can use our platform. They can to do their remittance. So we will guide them. We support them in terms of compliance, in terms of licensing, in terms of branding, the entire A to Z on the remittance side. So of course, we are the regulator to give approval for that particular agent. The second one is we can appoint those who are non-licensee. For example, they are just say a grocery shop, or they are running mobile shops in a rural area or underserved area, which we find that is relevant for us to appoint them to serve the customers over there. There we can appoint them as agent, subject to their comply with our requirement on the capital, on the supervisions, and the other SOPs they are to maintain. So this is how we appoint. But now recently we're also looking into appointing on online agent. So that is somebody that's already have a customer base in online platform. So we are looking at that model at this moment to appoint them to give the access for the those online platform to plug and play with our platform. So this is how we are looking at. In fact, regulator right now open for online agent appointment.
Thank you. Interesting. Also, that space also changing sort of digital side. But also now, JJ, can I ask you more on the industry as a whole, and also from Asian perspective, how digital this transformation would affect? Also, another important question is that is the digital infrastructure, for example, connecting to the internet in remote areas, the plantation in the outside of it's really remote areas. You need to drive a few hours from the city. For example, in Sandakan, when we did the greenback activities, we drove few hours to go to those places. And then those. So the question is that is it really the agents do they how they see this the role importance in this business, and also still digital infrastructure is a challenge especially in remote areas.
Thank you, Isako. I think on the industry perspective, I'd like to touch on the MAMSB role. We have been standing solid behind the principle. I think the idea is for the bigger players, for a principle which they have a larger investment and larger set of corporate governance level. The idea is to build them as a local champion. So what MAMSB is doing, to standing behind them, the extending them whatever the support, the association platform in terms of doesn't charge them any special or privilege rate. Based on the nature, scale, and complexity of the business, we are giving the support to the principal in the terms of making them MAMSB is not as a cost centric, so they can use the investment in other parts. I think on the terms of the association, we have been supporting the principal in the terms of various training program, also at the flat rate. These are the things that MAMSB is trying to contribute, in the terms of strengthening the principal roles in Malaysia. Secondly, if we look into this, like how Mr. Rama spelled out, there are two types of agent in Malaysia. Yes, certainly there is one agent which we categorize as a license holder. They are the license holder under MSB department. And another agent that how Mr. Rama spelled out is is a non-license holder. Basically, these are the agents which come from the background as from a mobile shop, sundry shop, and something like that. So when you look into these two type of agent and how we are driving this agent business, certainly we do believe there is a lot of improvisation need to be done into the approach by this agent. If we look into the role of agent, particularly the license holder, for the past 10 years, it has been monochrome. They are doing two segments of business, remittance and money changing. But at the same point of time, if you look into the another segment of the agents, which we classify as NME, non-money exchange or non-licensed agent, they have managed to multiply the products that they are having at this point of time. These what we call the non-money exchange agent at this point of time also have created more revenue for income and sustainability. In terms of they have a choice for the more multiple remittance provider, then they also have a choice to access for the broader digital products. These are the area that we are looking at this point of time. How we can facilitate the the licensed agent also to broaden up their participation into digitalization, towards the digitalization. At the same point of time, strengthen the business model so everyone can look forward to uplift the national digitalization agenda or MSB digitalization agenda. If the question is, another question was asked regarding, what are the roles of agent in rural area? The agent has played a very strong role. This agent, they are the one who touch up with the end user. I think we can always, broaden the whatever scope that we are giving to the agent, because they are the end user touch point. They can be an enabler for digital remittance and eKYC to facilitate, face-to-face KYC for the onboarding of customer. They are the one also can play the major role to educate the foreign workers, since they are the one in touch with the end user. And they are also, at the same point of time, can become a cash in and cash out agent. As you know that, half of the foreign worker doesn't have a bank accounts, and we can see there is an emergence of 8 e-money company in Malaysia. These agents, these agents' participation in this industry can also be broadened, that they can be a cash in and cash out agent. And more specifically, what we can do is to develop them into a one-stop fulfillment center. Like how Mr. Rama suggested, they are looking into appointing online agent. I think one of the biggest point that running in the agent minds, when the digitalization came into a remittance business, which we can see this year, 24% of the outward remittance has been digital remittance. So what is going to happen to our rice bowl in this industry? So I think it's about time for us to look into transforming the agent role, and also to look into how agent can play more proactive role into serving the industry. Thank you, Isago.
No, thank you so much. So it's really this principal agent arrangement is important for regulators to increase, of course, the visibility, and also to increase the professionalism and effectiveness of regulations and surveillance supervision through principles. But at the same time, also industry that its agent network remains important for outreach, to make sure that the customers have access. Also, JJ pointed out that they are the one who deal with the end users. I think that's important. That this familiarity is important. Now, just a little bit questions around mums. So there are a number of jurisdictions who has an industry association, but I think Malaysia Association of Money Service Businesses is slightly different in terms of membership requirements, the role, a very active role. And then I've seen other associations, sort of membership voluntary, so that some associations had difficulty collecting the fees or membership fees, training. Also, the members sort of dominate the discussion rather than sort of proper governance. So my question first for Chenik is that what was the motivation? Now we see that the effective mums, but when, going back to 2011, 2012, around that time, what was the motivation for Bank Negara to establish industry? And then what was the sort of, what do you see the benefits of having such an association?
Thank you. It was a conscious effort on the part of the bank to set up an association. Then we had the banks had their own association, insurance, have a few. So we felt that there is a need for money services business industry to also have its own dedicated association, primarily to rapidly accelerate the development of the industry in a more orderly and structured manner. So we needed to modernize the industry. We needed to make the industry more professional. In order for us to have a structured program, MUM was set up in 2013. I think eventually it came into operation in 2014, and to complement our agenda, to modernize, to elevate the standards of professionalism, to safeguard the industry from MLCFT. Because when we have this association representing the players, the bank and the association can work together and come up with modules, education module to educate the compliance officers increase the level of compliance. We came up with an accreditation body and process to accreditate those which have undertaken all the modules. And recently we came up with the MSB Director Education Program. So besides the compliance officers, we also want the key responsible people, the CEOs, the directors, to also be trained in the area of managing and governing, especially the MSB industry. So that was the first reason. I think, and the second reason is we needed a focal point. We needed a focal point for industry to be represented. So mums became the and is the voice of the industry. We will sit down with the council to thrash out issues and chart the plan forward, come up with a blueprint, manage the timeline, and work together with regard to the strategies on how we want to chart the journey as well as the development of the industry. And especially during this pandemic situation, the mums, the presence of mums is even more visible, is even more wanting. So we needed a clear communication with the industry, and mums played significant and important role in voicing the views of the players to us. So they were very much on the ground. That will benefit the bank. That's from me for now.
Thank you. And just quickly, to Mr. Rama, as a first president, what was the biggest challenge at that time at the very initial stage to consolidate? Now we see a lot of benefits, but as a focal point, organize the industry, what was the sort of sharing challenges and then sort of successes that you achieved at the initial stage of mums?
Well, my key challenges at the initial stage was setting up the association from the scratch, by hiring staff, putting all the committee in place, governance process, engaging all the different classes. You know, there's a big boys and small players all together. We have to remember all of them are competitors. Bringing them in one roof and bringing them and putting in the idea is most difficult task at a early stage. So, but anyway, with all the support from the members itself, the councils and the regulator, I think we managed to overcome the entire problem. But there's a few other initiatives that I think that I believe that some of them are taking place right now. With the council, we managed to roll out the code of conduct. So one of the initiatives that managed to uplift the professionalism is one of the part of the second one is a part of the 5 years blueprint of the association. So we managed to build that blueprint. And the third one, I think we managed to come out a standard procedure to how to deal with public. Because previously the public need a voice, you know, to bring whatever the problem they have. So the association managed to know how to deal with the public. The third one, I think during my time is the formation of group of compliance officer. I think the group of compliance officer managed to uplift the entire foundation and managed to build the foundation of the association today. With these are four initiatives, I guess, I believe that is already making a wave, a strong association for today.
Thank you. And then to JJ, what's your sort of vision? You just assumed this role a few weeks ago. So what is your vision for mums in the next, especially currently the COVID pandemic is affecting the industry significantly. So do you have any sort of vision or view of the new roles that the mums can play in coming years?
Thanks, Isaku. I think in the terms of understanding the industry, I have been serving the association since 2014. 2014 to 2016, I have been served as a counselor of the Money Exchange Committee head. And also, after that, I have been also served the association as a vice president. So although I'm newly appointed but I understand the needs of the industry at this point of time. Of course, I like to thanks BNM. BNM is the through the MSB department, they set the stage for the industry. And throughout it, we have many achievements that we have gone through, which Mr. Rama has shared with you. And one of the achievement that I'd like to share is we are the first one who come up with a customer experience. We work along with Frost and Sullivan to have a customer experience survey, and we have worked very hard to bring back the industry, consumer trust towards the industry. I think after the introduction of MSP 2011, the association have worked very hard to build the consumer trust, and today the MSB industry, and then also the MSB industry, the trust with the MSB industries has opened a lot of channels in the terms of how members are having the privileges in the terms of the financing from the bank, in the terms of how customers are willing to place the money in our wallet, in the terms of how that the company also can have a lot of shareholder investors into our business ecosystem. These are the key dynamic changes that we managed to bring to the industry. We doesn't have that. But currently we are having this, and also not only the consumer trust and the financial ecosystem market trust, we are also having a direction, the players in the industry at this point of time also having a direction of many are willing to invest in our business. This is how we build the ecosystem of the business and the consumer trust towards this industry. So looking back at the totality, of course, like we have our key challenges is because of the industry has been represented by a group of people. We have a stronger players, and we have a players with a relaxed governance and relaxed governance level. So the key challenges for us, the industry, is, if you like me to summarize today, the industry, the 80% of the industry player is only having a 20% of the revenue, and the 20% of the industry player is having 80% of the revenue. That's the big gap in the industry that we identify at this point of time. And we are also continuously working with the members, how that we can assist members in totality. We are looking into the way and means. I think we are also working closely with the MSP departments to find a ways and means that how association, apart from continue building the capacity building, which our roles previously has been to strengthen and capacity building of members. Now we are looking how we can open the dynamic of the business for the members, so everyone can grow and the industry professionalism can be afflicted as well. These are one of the key challenges, key undertakes that we are going at this point of time. Talking about COVID, we have been a very close contact point for the COVID for the members. I think our help is there. The members, always come back to us in whatever the requirement. COVID is a highly uncertain territory. A lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of announcement will make by the government from here and then. So we have to be quick. We have to be quick. We have to be fast in coming into a members' aids and member needs. That's what we are doing. We are working very collectively with the bank, and furthermore, I need to emphasize here the banks also have given us an arm's length help. How they can also come in a very expedite way to assist the industry with whatever the needs. These are what we are doing at this point of time. I think further details matter on the COVID. I think we have a separate session later. We will touch on that on another session. I think there's another agenda on that. Thank you, Isako.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to turn the discussions towards the COVID situation, because this impacts, the impact is enormous globally. But I like to focus on this, especially the MSB industry. So first, that for you, JJ and Rama, from industry point of view, what was the major impacts of COVID pandemic on your business? And I'd like to hear sort of different kinds of impacts between remittance businesses, money changers, and wholesale currency. I understand that there are different degrees of impacts or different types of impacts. So if you could elaborate on that, that would be great. Starting with JJ.
Yes, definitely the COVID is an unexpected thing to the entire world. I think we are not live alone in this environment. In the terms of business impact, I think we have three main segments in the industry. Money changing is the segment that from my point of view, which have the largest impact because of the COVID impediment. If you look into the few factors that causing money changes to the business to drop more than 70%, is one of it is the border is closed, no one is traveling at this point of time, and also this has been the traveling has been a key instrument for the money changes for the changing of money. So when that purpose has been defeated, and also together we can also assume that at this point of time, there is also no corporate transaction because the border has been closed at this point of time. And in the totality, the number of corporate transaction also has dropped significantly. So this is the money changing is the they are having a tough time at this point of time. We are also looking into the way and means. The association is looking into the way and means how we can collectively together can come out into at least making some turnaround on the impediment they are facing at this point of time. That's on the money changing part. On the wholesale currency, because wholesale currency is directly tied up with the money changing, they are up tier for the money changing clearing and sourcing. But at the same point of time, I do believe that the impact by the wholesale currency is much little. Because they also have the ability to import and export from other different regions of the country apart from Malaysia. So they have some opportunities, to leverage the capital in other segments. But still also in another context that, they have the fixed costs over in Malaysia and all that. Totality, they're also having a very tough time. But in terms of remittance, yes, remittance, there was a complete close down. We can see around 60 to 70% of the reduction of business. But remittance have managed to make a great turnaround, I guess, after the lockdown, the demand has been spurs up. And then I think remittance, the impact on remittance business is much less compared to other segment of business. So these are in a totality what is happening into the industry at this point of time. And also, if we look into other aspect, we are also try to understand how that we can connect to the industry to resolve whatever issue they are facing at this point of time.
Thank you, Rama.
Thank you, Isako-san. So I'd like to break into the three segment again. For the money transfer, we see this significant increase, and the impact is more significant increase in the digital platform. Probably this is a time that people not moving out from the house or having difficulties to go out. So we see more than 100% increase in digital platform. The second thing what our observation impact is the hybrid agent, that they are started focusing on remittance instead of focusing, because there's no currency, they're more focusing on the remittance. So we can see, in fact, they're asking us whether they can operate other segment. For example, maybe they are looking at other segment, B2B and all the things beside the servicing on P2P. So on the second one, the money changing, what impact for merchant trade is, yes, there's an impact on the drown in terms of revenue. There's even our agent also facing the same thing, and because of impact of revenue, they're unable to support the operation costs. So the revenue is much impacted. The third one, I think the wholesale breakdown. The wholesale, we see different. We see there's a lot of import of ringgits coming in from the border countries, Singapore, Thailand. We see that the counterparties are started clearing the ringgits because we don't see a travel movement. So we can, however, the overall business is also down by 70% because we don't have the foreign currency trade. So that's the impact.
Thank you. And what about the businesses? And but do you what was the sort of reactions from foreign workers? Do you hear any sort of views from them, and then how difficult or sort of requests that a wish list from migrant workers or foreign workers in city or rural areas? How do you communicate with them, and then what kind of sort of voices that do you hear from the users during the pandemic?
So just share with you on the during pandemic, yes, some of the on the MCO during the movement control. So we managed to obtain certain. I mean, we are very kind to a regulator. They given a certain exemption for the KYC part. So we managed to do a transaction via online and via whatever the platform available to them. So what we see is the challenge of the rural side is they cannot move, but digital platform managed to help them. The second thing is the urban side. They also started using the digital side, but the overall during MCO we can see digital pick it up very fast because we are unable to operate the branches, the brick and mortar that time.
Thank you. For those who are connected outside of Malaysia, the MCO is a movement control order, I understand, and that's a lockdown in a simple term. Okay. JJ, do you have, on the same question, any views, voices from users?
I think the remittance company, at that point of time, they have done a very good job. I think in terms of communication, there have been a lot of communication via the SMS and WhatsApp. They have been informed what are the channels that they can send and they can send money. I think at that point of time, the industry, particularly the remittance industry, have taken up a lot of steps, to connect it with the end users, to mention to them there is a lot of ways mean to do the business. I think the bank also, like Mr. Rama said, have come out with give us some kind of exemption, how that the remittance player can assist the members. I think that's one of the good things that has been done by the industry. We are responsible for the smooth transaction by the foreign workers. I think at that point of time we have done adequately. There's no panic here. Everybody know how to send the money. Most of the remittance company, they managed to done the business very well. At the same time, at the point of time, I need to emphasize here is one of the key points is we can see how the digital remittance, fly off at that point of time. Prior to that, I think the last year the numbers was around 10 to 12%. But this year until September, you can see the numbers is around 24% out of the outward remittance using digital remittance. So in a way that I can see the MSB industries has taken a proactive role into educating the consumer, the channels and ways and means for them to transact for them to make the transaction.
Thank you. And so back to Mr. Rama, and now we talked about digital increase. Do you see this as an opportunity? Of course, that the size or magnitude of the impact is enormous. So I'm not sure how opportunistic that the industry can be now. But as an industry, do you see opportunities in the digital space for investment, acquiring other companies, for example? How do you see this in this particular context, Mr. Rama?
Thank you, Sakosan. We are investing more on the digital platform. We, in fact, increase our more capex and more money into the digital platform, identifying new segment of market beside the migrant workers, B2B, a student market, and so on. We also keeping all our option open for acquisition, not only domestically and also outside Malaysia. So this is something that we started increasing, especially looking for more digital assets. So that is our main goal, looking for put money into a digital asset. We also open for collaboration with the bank and telcos. We'll see how we can, because we build the network, we build the entire platform connecting to almost 100 partners. So we are ready to work with the local banks and overseas bank to provide our the other part of the last mile. So while instead of just focusing on immigrant, we started moving, there's opportunity to move outside the remittance space, slightly different, more on giving the rails. So that's also we are looking at it, right?
And then, JJ, as an industry, what's the sort of, how do you see sort of collectively the industry, is industry figuring out a strategy to reconfigure the landscape or the business models, how to do business, under the so-called new normal? Do you see that trend in the industry as a whole? JJ.
Yes, we can see few digital transformation. I think in the terms of digital transformation, we can see in both parties. I think the money changing and remittance as well. As I explained to you, there is a double-digit growth in the digital outward remittance. And as of Malaysia, we have 39 remittance companies, which two-thirds of the company or around 26 of the companies is already offering digital remittance, either via mobile apps or a website. We also understand there are a number of other companies also in a process of application for digital remittance. And at this point of time, 8 out of the 39, they already have a eKYC. And we can see at this point of time also around 61% or 24 of the remittance companies, they already offer B2B services, business to business remittance services. So these are the key trends that, at this point of time, we are looking in the industry. At the same point of time, there are also few aspects how their digitalization has been used. There are few staging models, few models that we can see at this point of time. One model, of course, a fully digital eKYC, the 8 company that I mentioned to you. There are also another model that branch migrating customer to digital by doing face-to-face KYC and education. There is also another staging model where the customer can book online but pay for the remittance transaction offline. So these are a few of the key changes that we are looking into the industry. And we can see a heavy migration to cashless payment for remittance transaction at this point of time. Debit from account via FPX, JomPay, do it now. And also a e-money wallet. Some of the MSB company already embarked in the e-money wallet industry services. So MSB company, we already have a few MSB companies which also have a prepaid card, e-money, and this has been a major milestone in the industry. And this trend and phenomena is a groundbreaking to the industry. We can see a lot of players were looking towards to this direction in a very shorter period of time. So the association also taking a lot of effort, how we can facilitate the other industry player in looking into all these areas that all of us, can look into the digitalizations processes.
Thank you. So to Chenik, what were the measures that the Bank Negara have taken in response to COVID? Also, you mentioned about the role of moms as a focal point. So how Bank Negara has been responding to this situation?
Well, the COVID pandemic definitely kept us awake at night, and we were on our toes during the day. So it was a 24-hour affair. Our immediate response in March 2020, when the lockdown was imposed, was to engage the National Security Council. That's the highest level of security level in Malaysia, the governing body, because although the MSB industry was regarded as an essential services, was regarded as essential financial services, they didn't allow MSB to operate. Primarily because they wanted to contain the pandemic. They wanted to. It was a major health crisis. They don't want people to be going out to be doing MSB services when some of these services can be undertaken by the banks. So they allowed the banks to open and to do some of the MSB services, and it has been effective to some extent. So that was the main thing we did, was to engage the National Security Council. They allowed the MSB to operate only at the airports. They allowed selected hotels. So the immediate thing was, how do we get the services to be available to the public? We were engaging with employers, get the employers to send the money back for the players. We were making it clear that foreign workers can still do transfer via the ATM, so they can still contact the players using telephone or text, but the transfer fund, physical fund, is done via the ATM or the deposit machine at the branches. So we were looking at ways on how to get money to reach the beneficiary. I think that's very important, because other countries, the beneficiaries are also in need of funds. So we were making it very clear and more accessible for the players. And of course, this is besides digitalization, digital product, e-wallets, multi-currency products that can already be done. So we were looking at other ways on how we can assist the industry. Other measures that came later was engagement with the with mums, with the players. That's very crucial. I think a clear communication and close engagement frequently with mums, with the players, is very, very important, especially during the crisis that we were in and we are currently in. So that has to be mentioned, because we need to know what are the issues that are on the ground. So so the initial thing what we did was, even when the lockdown was put in place, even in the first week, we took the effort to ensure that the players can better manage their costs as well as their regulatory requirement. When we issued the regulatory relief, that was the first tranche of regulatory relief back in March 2020, where we lower the staff training expenditure from 2% to 1%. We gave them a fee waiver for 2020. This is to ease some of the financial burden. We allowed them to delay some of the statistical as well as regulatory submission. And this was some of the relief that we've done. That was the first tranche. And just like COVID, there's first wave, second wave, third wave, we also came out with a second tranche of regulatory relief a few months later. We gave them total exemption from the staff training expenditure. We postponed the mandatory training and accreditation of the compliance officers. We gave them additional time for statistical and reporting submission. And so these were the additional things that we did for the industry. Whilst it's important to relieve the regulatory and financial burden of the industry, at the same time, we have to think of a strategy on how the industry can pivot to or transform to the next level. Because definitely this COVID pandemic has changed the industry forever. The industry is not going to be the same as it was before. And so how we want to pivot, how we want to take advantage of this crisis on putting the industry on a higher plateau. We want to elevate the industry. So we were in constant engagement with management of the bank. The bank has allowed for the MSB industry to be the qualifying sector for the special business loan that were disbursed through the participating banks. So this is to give some relief to the players, but with a proviso. If you want the business loan, you will need to show that you are going to pivot, that you are going to transform, that you are going to change and introduce a better business model in order to effectively operate in this new normal. And one example that has been frequently mentioned today is digitalization. So we want players to show that they are able to digitalize their business operation before a business loan can be approved, for example. And we were also the intermediary for mums, for the players, and the MDEC. MDEC is the Malaysian Digital Commission, where we want to put them together and come up with ways on how players can clearly and effectively transform their business into a more digitalized player. So I believe this is something which is in progress. And this is an area that mums can elaborate further on how the players, MDEC, and mums are putting in program on how this digitalization can set a foot for the future. The bank also introduced several videos. We came up with videos on the social media on how players can use the digital products of the MSB players. We also came up with a video on how players can recognize which are the MSBs that are formal and which are informal. So because we want them to be able to recognize the true from the fake players. And also we came out with a video on the on some of the punishment or the penalties for using for introducing an illegal operation in the market. So these are some of the areas that we have done and we will continually do. And just to share with you, our next initiative is how the industry can consolidate further, how they can be on a stronger platform in order to operate in this new normal. I think that's it for now.
Thank you. Just before going to Q&A, the last question to the JJ is that do you hear as an industry or collectively from the industry that are there any whether there are other measures that either regulator or the government should take or how the industry is responding or sort of making requests? So do you see any demands for additional measures from government or the regulator?
I think first of all, the MSP department under the direction of Ingenix has been hands-on in this COVID impediment. I think a strong lead had been taken by the department to assist us in terms of how Ingenix is prescribed. SME banks participation, I think another BSN bank participation, bringing MDEC to the table. These are a few things apart from other assistance and collective effort have been extended by the MSB department to us. Further to that, I think we also has been given a avenue to also have some access to the Ministry of Tourism funds. You know, how the industry also can capitalize on targeted fund under Ministry of Tourism. These are a lot of initiative has been taken by the bank, to assist us adequately, to also to ensure that the remaining MSB company can sustain throughout this COVID impediment. At the same point of time, the industry also have a strong needs. I think as an industry view, I need to also share some of the industry player perspective is that they would like the MSB, at any point of time play a more proactive role. We have been thanks to the government of Malaysia. I think efforts some wage subsidies. That has been helped the industry to survive this, struggling period, particularly money exchange company. So what we are doing is at this point of time, we are trying to also capitalize to engage with other ministry and government agencies, which, we can utilize, for example, like Human Resources Department, HRDF, which they have funds, can be allocated to the industry. So we can allocate a fund to train the members without charge or give them a reduction of payment and something like this. These are the areas that we are looking into. The association also, we have discussed with the industries. We have come up with a few KPIs to be achieved by the next 100 days. Most of it, how that we are going to, work collectively with the industry to understand the heartbeat of the industry and to collectively work with them, to do whatever to ease the burden and to help them to overcome this impediment. So these are some of the efforts, as an industry approach that we are taking at this point of time. We thank the MSP department for the extensive handouts and for the immediate reach out during this impediment times. Sometimes, it's not hours, at any hours we reach the department immediately the reply was given, the assistance was given, the guidance was given, We appreciate that at this point of time. At the same time, what we are also trying to do is also try some assistance from outside the department to assist the industry to move forward collectively.
Thank you. So we can summarize that dialogue that you had already established before really helped in crafting or designing responses, and that should continue. Also, the Chenik also mentioned earlier. Now, I'd like to open the floor for questions. We have a number of questions coming from WebEx as well as YouTube. So, and some of the questions have already been answered. But the one quick question that I think JJ didn't touch when I asked about the connectivity to the internet in infrastructure in rural area. Do you have any views whether the agents in remote areas have challenges to connecting internet or basically the digital connectivity? Over to you, JJ.
Yes, overall, Malaysia have one of the best internet connectivity. But nevertheless, if you look into some rural areas, we do have this issue. But I do feel that this is at the point of time is minimal issues, and it's not about zero connectivity, but it's about how strong the connectivity is. It. I think totally we can see through the Greenback initiative, even in Sandakan and all those kind of rural area, we're still able to do the transaction through online, and that has been working very well. But nevertheless, because of the ecosystem of the rural area, we do face this problem. But I do think moving forward with the national agenda towards building a strong internet connection throughout Malaysia, this problem should be minimal to us, and we can look more forward to the online transaction.
Yeah, thank you. There are a couple of questions for Bank Negara Malaysia, and one regarding the first at the remittance data. Someone asked that do you have the 2019 data? You mentioned about the 28 billion Malaysian ringgit. Is it the 2019 data? And then another question is about principal agent arrangement. And then in other countries, there are sort of agents have multiple principals. So basically, the different principals, different agents have different contracts with different players. Is it the case in Malaysia? And then if not, why not? That's more my follow-up questions. And also the role of digital bank in Malaysia in this space. How do you see as a regulator the role of the digital bank going forward? Chenik, please.
The first question is on the remittance for 2019. Yes, I confirm that the remittance was, as at the end of 2019, amounted to 28.4 billion ringgit. So in dollars, that is about 9 or 8 billion US dollars. And this is only the amount remitted by the remittance services providers. It doesn't include bank remittance. For foreign workers or anyone using banks remittance, that's a separate figure for that. So for the remittance services providers, yes, the outward remittance was 28.4 billion as at the end of 2019. I think the second question is on principal agent. The bank is very much open to having a multiple principal agent, i.e., for an agent to have several principals to represent. We are open to that, but we want to see what is the model that can be used in Malaysia, because our primary concern is the issue of accountability. For any agent that has done any wrongdoing, it has to be tied to one particular principle that we will take action on. So we want to know which principle will be accountable or will be responsible for the action or the wrongful action of a particular agent. We are still open. We are in engagement with MUM, the association, with the principals in Malaysia on which model that will be suitable for Malaysia. So my quick answer to that is yes, we are open, and it is subject to further discussion that should take place in the near future. And your last question is on digital bank. I am not the person who can answer this with authority with regard to digital bank. But all I can say is we have yet to issue further statement on digital banks. The last I know is we will allow, or we will give 5 digital banking license, and even I myself, I'm waiting for what are the requirements and the criteria for the digital banks. So as far as sharing the information with you, I don't have the authority, but definitely we would like to see perhaps some of the MSB players can one day become successful and successful digital bank in Malaysia. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, thank you. The other questions, probably to Mr. Rama about this. So since the merchant trade has the largest network of agents in Malaysia, and the question is that first question is that so what is your views that when principals also direct competitor with agents? And then another question is that can I also ask you how you see the industry in the next 5 years? Because the Chenik also mentioned that the industry, the COVID changed this industry, drastically and then forever. So how do you see the sort of industry in 5 years? Also, that's yeah. So start with Mr. Rama on these two questions: competition and industry.
So if I understand the question very clearly, within my branches and agent network, that is the question?
Yes, I like
Right.
to ask. Yes, when so you say your agents are competitors, or
Okay.
is it the case?
No, we believe in a model that work collectively with the agent. That is our model, where or wherever the branch previous, we do not go and challenge our agent by opening branches. That's a criteria number one. But if we reopen the branches over there and the agent coming to us, we welcome them. So that's we set certain policies. But our main criteria is to help the agent grow their business. That is fundamental requirement for our objective to build the agent. So building agent, because they come from ground zero, they do not have understanding of the whole how the remittance work. So our objective always look for an agent location, try to build them, try to support them in term marketing, in terms of entire branding, in term educating, make sure they have a strong network and make sure they also make the revenues. Of course, there's a massive competition out there, but to us, whatever we can help in the competition for outside, competing with the other principal or other agents, we will do support. Our main thing is supporting the agent. That is our objective. On the 5 years, how the industry going to work on a 5 years? Well, as I said, right, today, a lot of things are digital. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised that agent will be moving from over the counter to digital, to be a digital agent. So that could be one of scenario it can happen. Currently, they are collecting more of the cash, they are servicing the customers. But agent would also have, just say, for example, they have about 1,000 customers lock into them. They may go into a kind of a situation that build a digital platform and control the work customers via digital. That is could be one option. that we're building the ecosystem for them. The second one, what we think is the 5 years, the urban areas, there'll be changes in the urban area. Most will move into the digital. E-wallet players will come in into very aggressively. I'm not very sure. I cannot foresee the digital bank side yet, how they're going to come into this play. But overall, will be massive competition will be coming for the next 5 years. That we foresee. There will be more pricing will go down. There'll be more competition will come in. More fintech players will come in. I guess everybody would like to come in this market, but we have to live with the competition. It is some certain time the consumer will be the winner. That's what we think.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think it's good. Also, some good answers too. Yes, well, I think. But what about the moms? How do you see? You sort of represent the industry as a whole. Do you see what is the sort of industry landscape in 5 years? Sort of hearing even small players. That's one. And the second question is that we've been talking about digital, and the one question is that how do you ensure the security on digital transactions? And then does moms take any measures in addition to the training that you offer to members?
Yeah, it's one of the toughest questions to answer. It has been always a strong role by moms to protect the principal and also to protect the agents. Both of them are our members. What I'm trying to say is non-licensed agent and the principal, both of them are our members. The biggest challenges here is how that we are looking to assist them for both of them to have a sustainable income, fair market practice. This is some of the fundamental view the association is looking into at this point of time. Looking in next 5 years and looking in what has been happening, for example, during COVID, what has been happening is, of course, the principal have to keep in touch with the customer. So the principal have to, communicate with the customer. These are the branches that we are able to, manage the transaction. But on the agent perspective, we are saying, the end user from her is going to the principal. I'm bringing this end user for the past 5 years, 6 years is migrating to the principal. How we are losing our customer to the principal. That's one of the things that agent is looking into. Secondly, is of course the biggest issue is everyone is very clear the customer belongs to the principal. But the end user touching point is also with the agents. They are the one who serve the end user. They are the one who get connected to the end user. So moving forward, I think a big challenge for moms is to determine, how long that we are going to categorize, how to categorize or how to define the role of customer data. In our point of view, this customer data also has been a major impediment for digitalization. Because when the customer is not belongs to you, then how the agents is going to embark in the digitalization. So it will be always, it's always good to see how the principal is going to take some proactive role to give to give an agent online module, how they are going to come with new business module for the agent, so they can participate in online and they can also retain their consumer. Another biggest challenge in the agent principle as today is if you look into a 2014-2015, if a transaction has been done between an agent and principal, the ratio of the profit is generally 60% for the principal and 40% for the agent. There is a lot of complaint in the industry, the ratio has been go down tremendously, which some of the agents are only getting around 20 to 25% cuts. So what we are trying to do at this point of time, we understand the principal also, we need to support the principal. They need our utmost support, so they can always look into how they can become a local champion. They are also investing heavily in system and all that kind of aspect and to have a proper governance. At the same point of time, we also have to look into how that we can assist the agents for fair market practice. This has been a great challenge that has been undergoing by us. At the same time, I'm glad that I think the MSP department has given us a very clear message. Whatever is it that you come out with a module, and we are at this point of time preparing a right business module, different business module, to present to the banks, to mitigate all the rising risks and also to move forward the industry toward digitalization. I think that's one of the things that we can't compromise at this point of time. We need the industry digitalization. We can see few companies digitalization today. We are happy with that. They have taken a strong lead. But what the moms like to see is the industry digitalization with the participants of the MSB players. Also, this is one of the area that we are looking to improvise moving forward. On the cyber risk, cyber threat, is a big cyber risk, cyber threat. The industry has been going through it. I think there is a lot of risk assessment has been done on that. Mitigation has been in place. The association also are looking into this area that we need to further strengthen our IT capabilities. So we can also engage with members, to give them a risk framework and risk mitigation and always educate members. I think the bank has taken a strong lead. Recently, there is a lot of information disseminated by the bank to the members, in terms of strengthening the IT capacities and also the IT vulnerabilities. This is the key element, Isaku, I agreed on you that we need to focus in future.
Thank you. Just before going to next, we have a few more minutes before ending the Q&A sessions, and we have several more questions. But I'd like to remind the participants to respond or submit the polls to rate this session. Just a reminder, so that we can learn how we can improve this kind of a program through webinar. Thank you. So now, just quick question on to Mr. Rama. And does Merchant Trade offer or provide API connection for agents when your arrangement with your agents?
So there's a two type of model. Why we do not provide API for agent per se, but we work with MSB players. We also started giving our API to other competitors in the market holistically, and also we already started giving API for local banks. They're already using our system, as well as we also started giving our API for global players. So I think easily we already connected to about 32 players globally they do transactions. So we are started giving APIs to partners outside Malaysia, right? And for full agent hybrid, no, it's all come out of our system. So we can monitor the entire compliance, everything. We don't give a API.
I see. So more on you play a role of aggregator or to provide the infrastructure platform for
yes, we do
other players.
Yes, we do provide infrastructure platform for banks and competitors in the market. So they have a choice to do a transaction via us.
Thank you. There's one question about the MON regulations. This is the limit on the transaction per individuals. There's the 50,000 ringgit per individuals. Does Bank Negara have any plan to revisit that ceiling? Jenik.
Okay, a quick answer is no, there's no plan to increase this. But if there are any requests, you can always write in to us. We will look at it.
Thank you. And then last question is that I think it talks about accreditation. So the question, I read the question, how accreditation can be leveraged to 360-degree governance of MSB industry. Is this something that the JJ could respond, or? I'm not 100% sure.
In terms of, do you want me to respond on the terms of governance of the industry?
No, the question is that the accreditation. I understand that accreditation can be leveraged to 360 the governance of MSB industry.
Jenny, can I respond to this or?
I think we can follow up. Maybe the person who raised the question, we can follow up bilaterally. Now I think it's been very fruitful discussions, and I also learned a lot. I've been sort of monitoring on and off this Malaysian industry, I would say 2007, when the World Bank prepared the first report on remittance market. When I met also Mr. Rama at that time, then throughout this journey over more than a decade, and then it's truly that the industry has changed, but also this is a lot of good lessons how the regulators or the Bank Negara also collectively with the industry work together to transform the MSB sector in Malaysia. And then I'm sure that these lessons are very useful for other jurisdictions. And for those who are connected as regulators through a website, we welcome if you could have a sort of follow-up discussions if they're interested, as well as the industry. We like to hear a lot of insights as well as the industry sort of continue to first respond to the COVID, but also looking at next transformation. Now here, so thank you very much, and for the panel discussions, and also many thanks for the questions that through YouTube as well as the WebEx. Now, I'd like to invite my colleague Suleiman Kulibali. He's a program leader and a lead economist for Brunei, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. And he oversees the work, including financial sector, also macroeconomic, and also governance, among others. So I'd like to ask Mr. Kulibali to deliver closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Isaku. And thanks to this great panel that entertained us for almost 2 hours. I was really impressed by how they master the subject and how they have kept us interested and focused. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to close this session on the transformation of the money service business industry in Malaysia. First, I would like to, as I said, thank the panelists, Chair Nick, Sir JJ, Sir Rama, and also Isaku for the masterful handling of the question and really bringing the best the panelists could share to the participant. I think more than 150 participants I saw connected. Malaysia transformed the MSB sector through policies, legal and regulatory reforms, competition, and innovation. And the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, changed drastically the landscape. The negative impact of the pandemic on the MSB industry are no exception. Many other sectors are facing it. Remittance services depend on foreign workers. And the micro and small medium enterprises for cross-border payments. Also, money changing business is heavily relying on tourism. So Malaysia export and import are projected to contract sharply in 2020. And disruption to tourism and travel affected the retail sector, food services, and accommodation. So we see the direct link of the crisis on this sector, on this industry. A large portion of workers are employed in the sectors that have been significantly hit by measures to contain the spread of the virus. So I would like to share a few takeaways from this interesting session. Lesson from Malaysia's transformation will be a useful source of information for other countries that intend to reform the sector. I'm based in Manila. I know a lot of things to learn because the money sending and receiving is very active. So I think the experience of Malaysia will definitely be useful in many, many countries in East Asia, but also around the world. And I'm sure the participants connecting from different places have some. So first thing on the legal and regulatory reform were implemented based on a comprehensive review. Such a review and solid analytical work are key to successful reform. Then the establishment of the Malaysia Association and Money Service Business has been key in maintaining dialogue between the regulator and the industry. The panel share the industry's experience on MAM's role in dialogue with the regulator and the capacity building of the money service business for compliance. And I hope MAMs continue to play this important role and share the experience with other countries. Another aspect is the transformation involved. The transformation involved a series of innovation in policies and product to address the current challenge of COVID-19 and move forward. Innovation to promote digital transformation is even more needed. This will require further dialogue between the regulator and the industry. So we really saw from the back and forth discussion how the model, how the principal agent that have been put forward with governance and flexibility and trust that is being built has been essential for the flourishing of the MSB industry in Malaysia. And the World Bank will continue to work with BNM and the industry in order to facilitate knowledge exchange and dissemination. And please feel free to reach out to the bank through our hub in Kuala Lumpur, but also the experts, the key World Bank colleagues working on these issues. And thank you very much for your attention. And I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sue, for your closing remarks. I'd like to take another opportunity to thank Nick, Janik, JJ, and then Rahman for sharing candid views on this topic and in its challenging world. And I hope that we could address this challenge as well collectively. And we welcome further collaboration going forward. Again, thank you very much. Also thank all the participants who connected. And from Washington, it's late, and Sue is in Washington, so it's almost midnight. But thank you very much. So the video will be available, and also we will publish a report in a week's time. So the link to the report will be circulated to those who registered the event. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to Dr. Rod for opening remarks as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Sago.